I blinked. A person, apparently even younger than the master, stood before me, pulsating with hidden life. Whether lady or otherwise was frankly a mystery. Something roguishly boyish, at least as I would until then have identified it, adhered to her slight frame. But that was merely the prejudice of one schooled in the performance of roles in the outside world. In the house, gender was an irrelevance. The master's younger sibling and purported rival for his inheritance simply was. Seeking both guidance and reassurance, I glanced over to my friend's nervous smile. Behind his eyes lurked something like fear. Though the strained set of his face was hard put to in concealment. Then, again, we were alone, the master and myself, at tables so well laid with no sign of a servant. I began at last to realize that the armor of ease with which I had hitherto girded my thoughts had joints, cracks, and weak points. After this first encounter with Skrank, for the master never subsequently used or encouraged the style lady, something in me began at last to question that part of my resolve which laboured under the constraints of good breeding. To do the done thing, was that the sole value in which the master now held me? Was my friendship earnestly appreciated or scurrilously manipulated? Lacking an answer, I erred on the side of good etiquette and said nothing. Between what I now became aware were gaps in my memory between meals and the cultural conversations with which the master plied me during all our waking hours. This prandial drama was daily rehearsed. Skrank's behaviour became, if more familiar, nonetheless the more troubling and puzzling. She moved with a twitchy rapidity between rooms, sometimes appearing just out of view and waiting until a chance glance alerted me to her presence, before scuttling off in a direction which, again, given the propensity of the house to vary, left me none the wiser. Whereas the presence of the master had always cast a spell of reassurance over me, it was as if in the fleeting company of Skrank, all the cracks in the reality that surrounded him were laid bare. She was his fate, his nemesis, his doom, and yet he referred to her constantly and overtly as
my most beloved sibling.
All the while, with the small cries and vocalizations that intruded through the walls and always tightly bolted windows, the awareness of the latent animosity of the park. Peace then, but never quite reassurance, for nature there was contained, but not tamed, or was it in some dark partnership with the house itself? On one of the few occasions that I can now recall when I found myself at ease in my bedchamber, resorting between audiences with the master to the relatively undemanding company of a novel of mundane life.
Come, catch me, for I have purloined your peace of mind.
And against what even then protested loudly in my mind as my better judgment, I at once gave hopeless chase. Who might conceive of the turmoil in which that vast and unfathomable dwelling lay? Throughout the generations, on the exhaustion of possibilities of one suite of rooms, they had moved on to the next. Yet far more alarming than this commonplace of noble life were the signs they'd left behind. Signs of dissolution, of violence, and instruments of torture not merely antiquarian, but retaining grisly signs of actual use.
Oh, wow. That's fabulous, isn't it? Look, there's a minister blessing the hanged man, right?
No matter. I was possessed by the insane compulsion to retrieve my paper solace from the hands of my tormentor, and unaware of her upward trajectory, confronted her finally at the pinnacle, as it were, of this ever-mutant temple of degenerate family life. Perhaps by then, I should have expected her to be sovereign even over gravity, yet fall she did, and as swiftly as Galileo's feather in his imagined vacuum. By my side at that instant stood calm and unperturbed the Master.